Mindseye was meant to be a game changer, a cinematic action thriller set inside a revolutionary metaverse platform, developed by a studio founded by none other than Leslie Benzies, the former Rockstar North president and the mind behind GTA 5. But within hours of launch, Mindseye was being torn apart. What launched was an unoptimized, buggy mess that felt more like an alpha build than a finished product that had cost untold millions to make. But on paper, it had everything going for it. A lead dev who was a cornerstone of Rockstar North, huge investment from the likes of NetEase, a multi-year dev cycle. So what happened? This is the story of why Mindseye failed. When Leslie Benzies left Rockstar in 2016, the industry watched closely. He wasn't just any producer. He was the producer behind GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas, and the game designer behind GTA 5. His departure was messy, with lawsuits alleging unpaid royalties and internal disputes with Take-Two. But just 2 years later, he returned, founding Build a Rocket Boy, with over $40 million in initial funding and investment, and backing from tech giants like NetEase. At the core of the studio's vision was everywhere, a kind of Roblox for adults, or as I like to refer to it, the Oasis from Ready Player One, with UGC creation tools, real-time multiplayer, and modular game experiences. And nestled inside that is Mindseye, a flagship cinematic single-player game designed to showcase the power of the platform. Expectations were, in many ways, justifiably astronomical, but few outside of the studio knew how troubled the project already was. Behind the scenes, Build a Rocket Boy was anything but stable. Key leads on the Mindseye project, including senior narrative designers, systems engineers, and technical art directors, quietly left the company in the year leading up to launch. Days prior to launch, 2 leading executives left the studio. Both the chief financial officer and chief legal officers abandoned ship. In Feb 2024, Build a Rocket Boy announced layoffs of staff, wanting to create a leaner company. Less than 1 month after announcing yet another successful investment round that saw another $110 million invested into Build a Rocket Boy. Former staff later described the workplace as chaotic and directionless, with shifting priorities, a lack of clear milestones, and a CEO who micromanaged the vision but failed to provide practical leadership. Today, its Glassdoor rating sits at a 2.2 out of 5, with Leslie currently enjoying a 28% approval rating as CEO. Some insiders claim that Mindseye was rebooted multiple times, switching from open world to linear segments, changing story themes, and struggling to align with the tools being built for everywhere. In effect, Mindseye was being built on top of a moving foundation, and it showed. With all the marketing, Mindseye offered a series of flashy trailers that in essence masked what seems to be an empty experience. The story, a sci-fi thriller about corporate surveillance and augmented identity, was convoluted and emotionally flat. Dialogue was wooden, cutscenes were awfully placed, and mechanically the game suffered even more. Driving was floaty and borderline broken, gunplay lacked feedback and depth, combined with enemy AI that was erratic, sometimes acting totally brain dead, and missions that were short, linear, and heavily scripted, giving players little freedom that they expected from both the trailers and from who was involved in the project. And while the visuals sometimes impressed in screenshots, the in-game experience was filled with frame rate drops, pop-in textures, and bugs galore. It just didn't feel like a finished game. It felt like a prototype that had been pushed out the door, like an early alpha build, except it was apparently a finished game and cost over £50. When the game launched, reviews were brutal, and understandably so. Players called it a scam, a tech demo, or worse, a Trojan horse to funnel users into everywhere. Rather than acknowledge the criticisms, Leslie Benzies doubled down. In a now infamous interview shortly after launch, he suggested that the game had been misunderstood, that the community simply didn't get what Mindseye was trying to do. He even blamed players for being too focused on traditional gameplay expectations, instead of embracing the metaverse vision, which is wild for someone to say whose project seemingly had at least $200 million invested in it. So I guess really the question remains is, why did Mindseye fail? And really, based on everything we've discussed so far in this video, I think it failed because it was built on promises, not priorities. It was marketed as this revolutionary experience, but buried under platform bloat, executive ego, and internal instability. It was a casualty of overreach, a game crushed by its own ambition and a studio that lost sight of what the player might actually want. And when the curtain finally lifted on what that end product was, all that remained was a broken stage and, as of now, a largely absent crowd. The thing is with this is, I think what many people don't realize is the impact this is going to have on the industry as a whole. Right now, we barely go a week without a studio closing or massive layoffs. I mean, only yesterday, Ben, the studio behind Days Gone, announced a 33% layoff. Build a Rocket Boy have had their own layoffs mid-production despite massive investment. Right now, investment for games is becoming harder and harder to achieve, and one of the reasons for that is games like Mindseye that have had massive investment and funding poured into it. And let's be honest, unless something miraculous happens, a la Cyberpunk 2077, and they can claw back that audience and claw back those sales, it's not going to come back. This could be the last we hear from Build a Rocket Boy. And Build a Rocket Boy doesn't have that community build-up in the same way that CD Projekt Red did and continues to have. The COVID bubble has truly burst on the games industry. We are in a different industry than we were a couple of years ago now, and we seem to be getting AAA after AAA nearing it on disaster, increasingly lower financial forecasts, increasingly lower sales than were expected from these massive AAA behemoths. And here we have yet again another case of a massively bloated game that is not going to deliver either to its shareholders nor to the people that wanted to play a game. And that is something that will have ripples within the industry. There will be studios off the back of this failure who will be unable to get funding for their game. And that is the biggest casualty of Mindseye. It isn't the fact that the game itself is disappointing, is buggy, is poorly optimized, isn't finished. It's the fact that because of this short sight, because of this error, other studios will pay the price. And that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed my in-depth look as to why Mindseye has ended up being the disaster it is at launch. If you enjoyed the content, as always, please do like and subscribe. And until next time, something.